Know about a species in order to act on behalf of that species and protect their habitat. Polar Bears International is uniquely poised to connect people to polar bears in the Arctic. The Tundra Connections program allows us to connect scientists with viewers around the globe. And the goal of outreach like this is to instill hope and inspire action in our viewers.
We have a mobile broadcast studio, and we reach out to classrooms all over the world to talk about polar bears in the Western Hudson Bay. We have a couple different kinds of connections that we do out here. Sometimes it's live back and forth, and other times the live connection goes out and questions are chatted back for us to answer.
Will polar bears go extinct?
What can my class do to help protect sea ice?
Just the other day, we had a Skype chat with an entire school in Kiev, and we got to show them their very first polar bear, and when that comes up on the screen, it's really cool.
It's neat to maybe inspire the next generation of scientists. Seeing their faces light up when we show them videos and photos and talk about our research gives us motivation to keep going and keep doing what we're doing.
Join us as we stream live. You can view the broadcast on our website or watch live chats on social media. Tune in, ask questions, join our efforts to protect polar bears and the sea ice they depend on.
Good morning, hello, and welcome. Happy Earth Day, everyone. From Polar Bears International, Discovery Education, Columbus Zoo, and so many others, we want to wish you a happy Earth Day. And this is part of Polar Bear International's Spring Tundra Connections series. We are live, and we're so glad that you're joining with us today. When we realized it was the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, we leapt at the opportunity to offer a spring series of Tundra Connections programming, where just like you saw, we take you guys, students, teachers, folks from around the world to learn about polar bears. And now more than ever, we felt it was our responsibility to provide this fresh virtual learning opportunity to inspire you. Learn about the Earth today. Learn about the life of polar bears. Investigate more and identify the ways that you can make a difference. So hi everyone, good morning. My name is Kyle Schutt from Discovery Education. I'm thrilled to be partnering once again with Polar Bears International on this Tundra Connections series. And today's webcast is called An Earth Day Visit with Polar Bears. We'll be counting down the top 10 facts and some simple actions that you can take to have a positive impact on our planet, and even showing a polar bear cub. That's right, we are so thrilled that PBI's partner, the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, will be on with us later in the show to show off a baby polar bear cub. So we're so excited that you're with us. There's a lot of ways that you can interact. Okay, are you ready? If you have questions, we want to answer them. So, are you ready? During the broadcast, you can submit your questions to, see that on the screen? There's a chat window where you're viewing. Go ahead and submit those questions there. You can also email questions@pbears.org, or of course, if you're watching this on Facebook, we'll be taking a look at those comments and questions there as well. The goal for today is to have a 30-minute quick, fun top 10 countdown about polar bears. So let's go ahead and get started with number 10. And number 10 is over 10 years. That's right. For over 10 years, we've been joining each of you to bring this live Tundra Connections programming with Polar Bears International. We're so excited to be a part of this. And so since it's been that long, we wanted to set the stage. Why do we talk about this? What's so important about polar bears? Well, first off, they live in the Arctic, right? Not the Antarctic. Let's make sure right off the top of the bat, right? There is a polar bear, not to be confused with penguins. No, no, no. But we do this because, well, frankly, polar bears face a lot of challenges, but we can all work together to solve some of those challenges. We can act on behalf of polar bears. So polar bears need sea ice to hunt their main animals, their main prey, which is seals. You can see the polar bear there. That's what it looks like when they're way up there in the Arctic. They're looking for seals and trying to hunt for food. And the great news is that we also have polar bear scientists on the line with us today. That's right. So let's jump to number 9 to introduce our polar bear scientist. Number 9 is adaptations, okay? So polar bears, they have to adapt a lot to live in the Arctic. And to speak about this, I'm so excited to introduce my friend Thea. Thea, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and where you're joining us from today?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kyle. So my name is Thea Bechshoft. I am a staff scientist with Polar Bears International, and today I am coming to you from my home here in Denmark, which is a tiny country in Scandinavia, and it is where Lego was invented. So we have the original Lego land.
I just love
And
that, by the way. I mean, think about this. It's Earth Day and we're connecting from all around the Earth. So thank you for joining us. And if you don't know where that is, take a look on your map later after the broadcast and check that out. So talk to us a little bit here, Tia, about adaptations. Because polar bears, they have a lot of adaptations, don't they, to live uniquely where they live.
Really, polar bears live in such an unique environment, so they have to be really well adapted in order to be able to live there and survive there. So we have a whole list of things that are special about polar bears, and I'm going to take you through them. So one, they have a really long neck, and that's because they need to grab the seals in the seals' breathing holes. So they just stick their head down there, and their long neck helps them do that. Then, in order to cope with the cold, because it gets really cold sometimes in the Arctic, they have a very short tail. I mean, look at that little stub, right? They have a very short tail, and they also have very small ears, because you don't really want the ears freezing off, do you? Then, in order to actually walk on the sea ice, which is something polar bears do a lot, they have huge paws. They're like dinner plate-sized paws that they have to walk with on the sea ice. And you can see they have sharp claws, but they also have sharp teeth. Here's a lounging, stretching polar bear. You can see some of the canines on it.
Picture.
Really
Look at
sharp
that.
teeth,
That's amazing.
right? And you can just see how they're brilliant for just grabbing that seal and dragging it out, again, out of the breathing hole, as I mentioned before. And then they have the sharp claws, and that's not just to hunt the seals with, and you also to help drag them out of the water, but it's also to actually gain a grip on the sea ice when they're walking, because as I'm sure you know, ice can be pretty slippery. Also, if you're a polar bear, if they weren't adapted to it. So they have the really sharp claws that help them, and they also have what we call sticky feet. So tiny little suction cups, if you will, underneath their pads. And then, also to stay warm, they have awesome fur. So they actually have not just one layer of fur, but two. They're not white, they're actually clear, so there's no pigment in them. You can't see through them, but they really are clear. And they keep the polar bears very nice and toasty, even in the middle of a snowstorm. And then, of course, let's not forget, they also hopefully have a really nice layer of body fat that will help keep them warm when it's really cold in the high Arctic. So lots and lots of adaptations.
I love it. And we have so many questions coming. Again, I just want to send a little reminder, because we know we have first graders joining us. We have fifth graders joining us. We've got folks from all around that are connecting with us, and we want to answer those questions. So maybe you need to go get a parent. That's okay. Get someone with an email account. If you don't have one, go ahead and send those questions to us by using questions@pbears.org. Okay, questions@pbears.org. Or, of course, if you have the chat window, go ahead and submit your questions right there, because we do want to answer those as we go throughout the broadcast as well. And then we're monitoring things like the hashtag Earth Day. We know that lots of you are tweeting there and using Twitter too. So let's get back to the adaptations, Thea, because it's pretty fascinating. If you don't know anything about these big animals, you might wonder, how do they live to adapt? Well, it's also tough to study polar bears, right? When you're up there, it's pretty cold. So I brought something that I thought, well, just a little surprise. I thought people might want to see this. This right here, see if I can bring this into my camera. This is a polar bear parka, right? Our friends at Polar Bears International, this is called an expedition coat. They work with a number of polar bears, and they have to be warm. So look how thick this is. Have you ever seen a coat this big and this thick? It's got fur around the hood. In fact, if I kept this on, oh man, I'd probably be so warm. I don't think I could keep this on the rest of the broadcast. I think I'd be way too warm.
Honestly, you can use that thing instead of a sleeping bag. It's awesome.
You've worn one. I know you have. They're amazing. But you know what? it's also for a purpose, right? Because it's just so cold where polar bears are. In fact, every fall when we're up there in Churchill, Manitoba, which is where Polar Bears International is based, to be able to study the polar bears, in Churchill, Manitoba. You can look up, that's another if you're studying and trying to learn your geography today. That's what they have to wear because it's just so cold in northern Canada and it gets really cold there. So thank you. Let's go ahead and go on to our next top 10 list. We're learning about polar bears if you're just joining us, and we're on to number 8. So number 8 is months. And that's the amount of time that a female polar bear can go without food. So Ted, talk to us a little bit about the nutrition. What do polar bears survive on when they are eating food? And then speak to us, why is it that they go so long without food?
So polar bears, I think I may have given it away just before when I was talking about adaptations. Polar bears love to eat seals, especially ringed seals, if you want to Google that. Ringed seals, and not just seals, but especially seal fat. So the blubber that you have on seals, because that's where all the nice calories are in. And polar bears, they really need to pack on the calories. So the more fat they can eat, the better. And especially if you're a pregnant polar bear female, you need to put on a lot of weight before you can, start building your den and have your cubs in there, because she will be in the den for a couple of months before the cubs are born. And then she'll continue being in the den with her cubs for another 3 months, or even more, actually, while she's still not eating, but now also feeding her cubs, nursing. So polar bear females, sometimes they will have to go up to 8 months without eating. So they really, really need to pack on a lot of seal blubber before going into the den.
Wow. And if we can, we have so many folks behind the scenes that are supporting us. And my friend BJ, he's behind the scenes. BJ, can you go back to that video of the seal that you were showing? Because Thea, I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit. We often get questions around, do polar bears swim to catch their prey? When would if this is a seal that we're looking at here, how would the polar bear go about actually getting that seal?
So this is a bearded seal. There are ring seals and bearded seals. Those are the two main seal species that polar bears eat. And this one, the polar bear would likely sneak into the water from another ice flow, swim underneath the water, and then jump up on the ice flow and try and catch that seal before it slides into the water itself. Because polar bears are really strong swimmers, but they're not nearly as fast as the seals in the water.
I love it. And we're getting some pretty good questions here too. So thank you, Thea, for describing that. In fact, some folks want to know a little bit more about you. So in fact, Violet is pretty interested in your job as a polar bear scientist. She'd love to know, how long have you studied polar bears?
I have now studied polar bears for 16 years.
Wow.
And I work with them in Svalbard, I work with them in Greenland, and I work with them in Canada.
Wonderful, wonderful. Keep those questions coming in. In fact, Kala from Ohio, I just want you to know, we're going to come back to your question. You just listen. I guarantee we're going to give you this answer, but she wants to know how do they stay so white, and do they clean themselves often, and if so, how? So we're going to come back to that later. Okay, you stay with us. I promise we're going to answer that question. So let's go ahead. And by the way, just in case I need to prompt BJ behind the scenes here, my kids, they've jumped into the polar bear top 10. So here's number 7. I said, we got to keep BJ honest, doing his job. So BJ, here's your prompt. Here's number 7. Okay, so number 7 of the top 10 things we're learning about polar bears is the ways that a polar bear can clean itself or scratch an itch. And this is my favorite. Not only this photo, but guys, get ready. If you've not seen some of the cute things that bears do, there it is. Taya, talk to us. What is this bear doing? I love this video right here.
Absolutely. So other bears, they have like rub trees where they scratch themselves against. Most polar bears don't have that. So, this polar bear is in Churchill, and it has the little shrubs behind it, and it can kind of scratch on those. But mostly, polar bears will do exactly what this bear is doing and just roll around, shake. Sometimes they do the slide, which looks really funny. They'll rub against like blocks of ice, but literally usually just sliding around the snow because it's the only thing that they can scratch on. Yeah, it's a good way to scratch an itch, but it's also a really, really good way to stay clean. And it's actually also a really good way to dry off. So really, polar bears will use snow not just for scratching, but they'll also use it as their towel. So I don't know, Kyle, if you've noticed when you've seen polar bears in Churchill that if they're wet, like if they've been in the water, when they come up, sometimes, or actually usually every time they come out of the water wet, they're going to roll around on the snow because then they get rid of all that water in their fur.
Interesting. And I think that brings up a pretty interesting point also, in that the polar bears don't live in an environment like we were seeing. That is in Churchill. Why is it that the polar bears are in Churchill when we're studying them in the fall and when folks hopefully join us again for the annual polar bear migration? Why is it that they're kind of in the brush there? How do we get those videos and all of those live feeds?
So the polar bears in Churchill, they're getting together on the shore of Hudson Bay because they're waiting for the sea ice to come back. The sea ice in Hudson Bay disappears completely over the summer months, so the polar bears have no choice but to be on land. And then the first place it comes back is just around Churchill. So the polar bears know this, and so they get up there and they sit there and they wait. And while they're waiting, we can have a look at them. And yeah.
I love it. All right, so let's get on to number 6 here because we just have so much here. And like I said, we got to keep on time. We're only going to be about 30 minutes with you today, but number 6 of our top 10 is key species. Now, species, can you say that word, everybody? Okay, you got it. I think I heard. Did you hear it, Thea? I think I heard him say species, right? Species is an important word for us to study here. So 6 key species in the Arctic food web. Well, what is a web and what is the food web? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the food web, which is literally based on who is eating who. And in the Arctic, the food web or the food chain is pretty short, but it's all dependent on sea ice. So here you see the polar bear standing on the sea ice, and you know that sea ice is so important for polar bears because that's where they get the seals, but it's also important underneath the sea ice because that's where you find algae growing. The sea ice is kind of like what the soil is to the forest. This is where the algae grows. And these algae are then eaten by slightly bigger algae that are called diatoms. And the diatoms, which we have here, are then eaten by copepods, which are kind of like tiny shrimp. And they are then eaten by the polar cod that are then eaten by the ringed seal. So you see now the ring seal is there so the polar bear can eat it. So the sea ice is incredibly important at the top of the food chain where the polar bear is and at the bottom of the food chain where the algae starts the whole process.
And that there brings on another word, which is habitat, right? Sea ice being that habitat where the polar bears spend so much of their time. Excellent. Okay, so that brings us to number 5. Okay, here we are with number 5, our 5 senses. So with our 5 senses, can you name them? All right, everybody, go ahead and name them. What are those 5 senses? Sight. Yeah, somebody had to have yelled out sight by now. Okay. Yeah, hearing. That's how you're seeing and listening to us today. That's right. Let me give you a hint. Smell. Can't do it lately, but touch, right? And also taste. So talk to us, Thea, about polar bear senses, because just like the students that are watching us today, they have 5 senses.
They do, exactly. And some of those senses we know a lot about, and some of them we don't know a lot about. But let's just take them from the top. So
Look at
polar
that long
bear
tongue, by the way.
sight.
You see that picture?
Yeah, yes.
That's incredible.
You know what? I'm gonna get to that. But polar bear sight.
I rushed it.
is more or less the same as you and me, except polar bears probably aren't too good at seeing the color green. That makes sense. You know, if you think about where they are, it's pretty much white and blue. Hearing in polar bears, it's also more or less the same as you and me. They are a little bit better at hearing like the high frequencies, like, you know, a dog whistle. Polar bears might be able to hear that. And then, Kyle, coming back to the polar bear tongue, polar bear's sense of smell. This is what makes a polar bear tick. It's its whole world. Polar bears have an incredible sense of smell, and sometimes you'll see them sticking out that blue tongue in order to get more air in. They have this special little organ inside their mouth that helps them smell even, their sense of smell be even better. So they'll pull in extra air into that to really get all the information. And if you want to imagine how good a polar bear's sense of smell is, it's hundreds, if not thousands of times better than what you and I have. As for their taste, polar bears will eat most anything, to be honest. But it seems like maybe they really like anything oily. At least that's what people who live in the high Arctic in polar bear country, they tell us that polar bears really like anything that has an oily taste or smell. Now, as for touch, I haven't touched too many polar bears. If I did, they were sedated. So to that, I don't know.
Of course, the polar bears do. They touch the sea ice, right? When they're using their claws, like you see right there. Look at those big paws with the claws to be able to hang on to that sea ice, right? I heard once. Can you confirm this for me? I heard that polar bears, they can do something fascinating with their paws. In fact, the papillae, the little things on top of their paws. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, you mean like the suction cup?
Mm-hmm.
Do you mean
I
the
heard that
smelly feet?
Yes. Have you heard of that?
All right. Polar bears have smelly feet. Who knew? So in between, right here, in between the toes, they have like little scent glands. So they will, like, this is a particular scent for just that one polar bear. And every time they take a step, they leave behind a little bit of that smell, their personal smell, in their footprint or paw print. And that means that polar bears, if they come across the paw prints from another bear, they can just stick their nose right in there and they'll smell everything they need to know about this bear. It's pretty cool.
That's really cool. That's so wild. Okay, well, we have to now, this is the perfect time. We've talked about bears, we've seen bears. I think it's time for us to go and see a bear in the wild, or at least in the zoo, I should say, a bear in real life. So number 4 is polar bears at the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium. So are you ready? I'm going to show you the cub. Are you ready for it? Here comes. No, that's not the polar bear cub. This is just my little buddy, you know. And this is my stuffed animal cub. No, we do actually have a polar bear cub. Let's go ahead and bring our friends here. Tom from the zoo, as well as Devon. Tom is the president and CEO of the zoo, and Devon, of course, is our polar bear keeper. Are you there, team?
Hello, everyone. Yes, we're here. Yes. Hey, happy Earth Day. I can't believe we're celebrating 50 years, and we just absolutely love polar bears. You know, the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, we have so many animals, but I can tell you right now, our favorite has to be polar bears. And, you know, millions of people come to the Columbus Zoo every single year, and it is so busy at Polar Frontier, but especially now. My good friend Devon is right at the polar bear area. And, Devon, what do you think? Do you see any polar bears out there?
We've got a couple. So yeah, I'm here in Polar Frontier at the polar bear habitat, and we are having a very exciting day because we have our mama polar bear Aurora showing her almost 5-month-old cub around the yard. So they just came out here. This is their second day out, and they're doing amazing. He's very brave, experiencing all the new things. And it's also a very exciting day for us because we found out after a public naming opportunity that over 55 countries voted on the name. Kulu. So I'll send you over to the bears. We've got Mom Aurora here diving. She's very excited to be in this big pool. And there is Kulu. You can see probably a little bit of red on his head because he was having some fun painting in the back. They like to paint some paw print pictures for us every once in a while, and he got some on his head, so he's looking really fancy today.
Was that a jump? That was awesome. Did you guys see that?
I know.
Wow.
Yeah, he from day one has been a great swimmer. The first time he hit the water, he decided that he loved it, and he's been doing amazing. So
now we see them diving under the water too.
Yeah, he's already diving down a couple of feet, which is actually the earliest we've seen any of our cubs dive down that far. So he's advanced. So Kulu is actually a perfect name for this little guy for a couple of reasons. One is that it is the Inuit term for endearment. This is so fitting for a couple of reasons. One is that the Inuit people are indigenous to some of the countries where polar bears live, and polar bears play an important role in their culture. And secondly, Kulu being a term of endearment is obviously perfect because if you look at him, you fall in love with him right away. Whoa, there she goes.
Wow, did you see that?
See if he can match Mom's skills or not yet. I'm sure any day he'll be following her footsteps, diving in right after her. So the next number in our countdown is number 3. So in addition to this little guy here, we have 3 adult polar bears at the Columbus Zoo. So we obviously have Mom Aurora here, but we also have her twin sister Anana, and then we have Kulu's dad Lee. So one of the most impressive things about polar bears is just how huge they are. So Kulu, when he was born, he was only 1 to 2 pounds, so teeny tiny little guy. And he's already over 90 pounds now at almost 5 months old. His dad is over 1,000 pounds. And our 2 girls here are usually around 500 to 550 pounds unless they're going into denning. And at that point, they'll put on about a third of their body weight and get up to around 800 pounds. Let's see if he jumps in here.
That is so big. Now, we're also, Devon, we're seeing the images of when Kulu was just a baby, and Kulu was pretty dirty, rolling around in the mud. And I asked one of our participants earlier to just wait. I said, just wait, we're going to come back to this because they wanted to know why or how polar bears stay so white and if they clean themselves. And I have a feeling that everybody's figured it out by now. But just in case, how does Kulu get clean?
Well, by jumping in this giant pool, and then also by rubbing around in the snow when we have some. That's one of their favorite things to do. They get very excited.
This is so great. We have so many questions coming in. Also, while we watch the bears kind of playing in the pool here, a couple other questions coming in for you. In fact, Brandon really wants to know, he's a 3rd grader, he wants to know if he wants to become an animal expert, what his options are. So, of course, we heard from Thea a little bit earlier. She's a polar bear scientist. She goes out into nature to watch polar bears, but you have a pretty fascinating job there as the zookeeper. Can you talk a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis and what your role is?
Yeah, of course. This is definitely a wonderful option. And we have a great job here. So we are obviously caring for the animals, but that includes a variety of things. So we're obviously coming in and feeding them. We provide them with lots of different enrichment. Some of the things you can see here are the toys and ice blocks. Another thing we do with the bears here is training. So training helps us to better care for them. And it also helps us learn a lot about polar bears in general. So that's one of the things we get very excited about here in the zoo is even though we're not out in the field, we're still learning a lot about polar bears and learning more about how they work and things about them in the Arctic with polar bears right here in the zoo setting.
Absolutely. And the more we learn about them, then the more we know how we can help them for sure. So that's wonderful. And now talk to us a little bit. We're getting a lot of questions. In fact, Lily is 6. Hi, Lily. We're so glad you're joining us. Lily wanted to know if polar bears eat anything that are not seals. And so this is, by the way, old-fashioned way. This is number 2 in our countdown. The types of seals that polar bears eat, which we already told you if you were paying attention. Maybe everybody heard that. But what kind of seals do polar bears eat? And then what else, Devon? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Or maybe, Tom, you know that one.
Well, we could have Devon talk about their diet here at the Columbus Zoo Aquarium. I know that they're eating a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah, so these guys eat quite a bit. The adult polar bears are getting around 5 to 7 pounds of meat each daily, as well as probably about 4 to 5 pounds of fish. One of the most exciting parts of their diet here are the live fish in their pool. So that was one of the things we had to do to prepare Kulu for coming out here, was introduce him to a live fish. And what's neat about that is you can see when the polar bears here are hunting the fish, they use a similar hunting technique to what they would be using in the Arctic hunting a seal. So instead of wasting a lot of their energy swimming around the pool and trying to catch the fish, which are obviously much faster than they are just as a seal would be, they wait for us to throw the trout chow in the water, and they wait at the top of the pool for the fish to swim by close enough for them to grab them, and they catch them and pull them out of the water. So just like they would hunt a seal, they wait at that breathing hole, and when they get their opportunity, they grab that seal. So it's neat watching them use a similar hunting technique right here at the zoo as they would in the Arctic.
I love it. Now, additionally, if you were wondering what kind of seals, because we're getting questions around that, ringed seals and bearded seals, if you were listening earlier, Tia actually gave us that answer. Ringed seals and bearded seals are those 2 seal species that they eat. Now, I'm going to go and look for some questions, Devon, see what else we can bring up. Yeah, tell us anything else fascinating. By the way, I love the fact that you're announcing, I don't know if everyone caught that, but you're announcing today about the naming of your cub. That's correct? It's just today that you're letting everyone know about that.
Yeah, we just found out today, so we're very excited about that. He was actually born on Thanksgiving Day, so he is coming up on about 5 months old. Something that was really exciting for us is that he was born one day after his dad Lee's birthday, and he shares a lot of his dad's characteristics, his really friendly and inquisitive nature. It's been really rewarding watching, mom care for him from the time they were in the den and he was just a couple pounds. Watching a 800-pound bear care for a little 1 to 2 pound baby is very, very special. How they move around them, how they adjust, and how they help them nurse. And then around 3 months of age, they were ready to come out of the den, and we've just been, slowly growing their world from there on out and going off their cues, and they showed that they were ready to come out here, and obviously you can see he's doing great. One of the things that was really fun to watch is just watching them play. I'm going to show you real quick this big ball here. So you can see next to me how big a polar bear toy is. So this is obviously very heavy for me to lift up, but the polar bears bounce it around off their paws like it's nothing. And Mom has been teaching him how to play. You can see them over here playing in the water. It's one of my favorite things about them. I've been working with them for just about 10 years, and it's hilarious seeing the moms jump in with the kids. You throw some toys in thinking that the kids will be the first ones to play, and the mom's like, "Get out of my way, kid. This is my toy."
Well, I like to think that they're just modeling, right? They're just teaching. By the way, we love the exactly, hello, my name is sign. Now, speaking of sizes, and thank you for the perspective, that toy, that ball looked pretty big to me, but we're getting questions around their sizes. In fact, Cora wanted to know how big polar bears are compared to dogs. So maybe you could share a little bit about how big Kulu was when he was born, and then you've mentioned the size a couple times, but compared to a dog, that's pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah, so what's fascinating about these guys to me is he was, only a couple, like 1 to 2 pounds at birth, so teeny, teeny, tiny. And he's already 90 pounds. But if you look at him, he's still tiny. So it's amazing how much weight they pack in that little frame. But in the past, we've had several other cubs here. This is actually our 5th cub here at the Columbus Zoo. And one of the most fascinating things about them is just how fast they grow. So by the time our other male cub, Nunick, left the Columbus Zoo at about 2 years of age, he was already bigger than Mom. He was reaching 600 pounds. So that shows just how fast they grow. It's pretty incredible.
They look pretty active there. They're trying to smell. Do they smell you? They're trying to say, hey, what's going on in there?
Yeah, they definitely know when we're around. We've also got someone up top who's tossing some toys and stuff in. So that they're like, are we getting anything else? What's going on? Always checking
I imagine they're
out.
not this active all day long. In fact, we're getting some questions about how often they play and what their day looks like. Can you talk a little bit about their routine? We're so happy to see them today, of course, but they're probably not always swimming, correct?
Right. It's definitely, it changes with the weather and time of year, but usually they're very active first thing in the morning. And then after lunchtime, which is kind of what I like to do also, they like to take a little bit of a nap. And then later in the evening, we see a little bit more play from them. And then around the time that we're all going to sleep, they are too. Once the sun starts setting, they're down for the night until, it rises the next morning. But they are very playful, and in the summer they do love to spend a ton of time in the pool.
I love this. Okay. Well, we only have time for a couple more questions. This is so amazing. I could just stare here and look at these bears all day. I have to admit, I hope that everyone that's watching is just so entertained because we just feel like we're there with you. So enabling us to take this virtual field trip with you, we are just so thankful for that. This is awesome. So with that, I'm getting a lot of questions about what you can do. How can you help polar bears? And that actually brings us to our number one. I'll bring in my little my countdown. We're at number one here, guys. What is the number one? Well, the number one is you. It's each of you. Each of you can make a difference. And you might ask, well, how can I do that? Well, you're doing it today. You're learning with us for Earth Day. And we're so glad that you're joining. And now more than ever, it's just so important that we care for each other as well as the animals in the natural world. So being able to learn about polar bears, just like we're sharing today, is one of the ways that we can know how we can help them by studying them and observing them. And of course, just like we made our top 10 list, maybe that's something that you guys could do at home. Go make the top 10 list that you learned about Earth Day, that you learned about polar bears, and share it with others. So with that question, I'm going to ask our panel, because we've got everybody on here. Thea, I'm going to start with you, and we're going to go around to Tom, and then we'll wrap up with Devon. What's the one thing that you want to leave everyone with? How would you recommend that they make a difference, or what's the one piece of advice that you have on this Earth Day? Go ahead, Thea.
Oh, sorry. Well, like you just said, Kyle, I really want you all to realize that you can make a difference. Just by talking about polar bears and everything you know about why they need sea ice, that would be amazing. Because a lot of people don't know, and now you do, so you can share that.
Excellent. Tom.
Yeah, fall in love with wildlife. Here at the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, we're so proud of the 100 different conservation projects that we support in 46 different countries. For 12 years, we've been supporting Polar Bears International. Why? Because they do great work and they inspire everyone to make a difference. That's what I love about the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium. We're inspiring people every single day to care about wildlife and wild places.
I love that. Devon, we could probably stay with you all day, but we are going to have to ask your piece of advice, but we'll let you go ahead, say your advice, and then see maybe Kula has something to share as well.
Yeah, so, as soon as I started working with these guys, I fell in love and wanted to do all that I could for the species and the ecosystem they rely on. So being able to participate in a PBI program, the Climate Alliance, was a wonderful experience for me. I got to go to Churchill and see a polar bear in the Arctic, which was a life-changing experience. And I just hope that you guys seen Kulu today had the same effect, and that all that you feel watching these two play in the pool really sticks with you, and that you want to do all that you can for them and the species as a whole.
Thank you. And I do want to thank each one of you today for joining us. This has just been so much fun for me. And I know the students out there have learned so much, and just hopefully it's provided a fun kickoff to their Earth Day. So if you would like to learn more, we definitely encourage you to do so. Polar Bears International, they host a number of programs, their education center on their website. In fact, their partner, one of their partners, explore.org, is so helpful in bringing today's event as well as helping you guys. You can go there and follow your curiosity around animals from really around the globe, where they host their streaming live cameras. So go ahead and do that as well. But now more than ever, we want you to know that you can do something. It's Earth Day. Why not start today, right? Learn more about polar bears and then share what you learn, because there's so much that you can do. So if you would like to learn more, we definitely want you to go ahead and share with us. Follow Polar Bears International, Discovery Education, the Columbus Zoo. All of these partners are looking for ways that they can help to educate, help to teach, help to bring these live experiences and show why the world is so fascinating and why, frankly, we should protect our Earth on this Earth Day. So thank you to our entire panel. Thanks to each of one of you at home for joining. We're so thankful. Today's event has been so much fun, this virtual field trip, and have a great rest of your Earth Day. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
People need to know about a species in order to act on behalf of that species and protect their habitat. Polar Bears International is uniquely poised to connect people to polar bears in the Arctic. The Tundra Connections program allows us to connect scientists with viewers around the globe. And the goal of outreach like this is to instill hope and inspire action in our viewers.
We have a mobile broadcast studio, and we reach out to classrooms all over the world to talk about polar bears in the Western Hudson Bay. We have a couple different kinds of connections that we do out here. Sometimes it's live back and forth, and other times the live connection goes out and questions are chatted back for us to answer.
Will polar bears go extinct?
What can my class do to help protect sea ice?
Just the other day, we had a Skype chat with an entire school in Kiev, and we got to show them their very first polar bear. And when that comes up on the screen, it's really cool.
It's neat to maybe inspire the next generation of scientists. Seeing their faces light up when we show them videos and photos and talk about our research gives us motivation to keep going and keep doing what we're doing.
Join us as we stream live. You can view the broadcast on our website or watch live chats on social media. Tune in,